Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors. Finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. But before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we really couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's meet the panel. We've got Mark Hurrell. He started in April. He's the High Sheriff of Gloucestershire. He's the ex-editor, presenter, producer, managing director of BBC Radio Gloucestershire. He's now retired, but the role that he's taken over now is really largely ceremonial, but it's been in existence over 100 years. So we'll find out all about that and how it's all going since he started. Next, we got Boris Worrall. He's the CEO of Rooftop Housing Group. The company has a turnover of £50 million, 180 staff, and is celebrating 30 years in business. So congratulations to them. We'll find out about how their Gloucestershire developments are going, and that includes the delivery of 300 houses in the back of Tesco and the old cattle market site. We have Jemima Gray, and she is the founder of Cotswold Fox Clothing. Jem started the business was the university project 3 years ago. The county clothing brand has just gone from strength to strength. It's absolutely fantastic. And we'll find out how that's going, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and also the reality of running your own business. So look forward to that. And then finally, last but not least, we got Dorian Kirk. He's the co-owner and founder of Art Hospitality, and they're the new owners of Foster's on the Docks Waterside Bar and Restaurant. Absolutely fantastic food, absolutely brilliant. And this is the group's seventh venture, but the first in Gloucestershire. So we'll find out how that is all going. Okay, let's have a quick glance at the newspapers, which should be here somewhere. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines. Courtesy of the BBC. Financial Times. Oil surges after Biden remarks over Israel attack on Iran. The Guardian, MPs to give a historic vote on legislation of assisted dying. The Times, PM defies US to concede Kagos. The Metro, poison jab murder plot by doctor in disguise. The Eye, energy price scare after Biden says Israel could attack Iran's oil. The Daily Telegraph, Johnson, UK needs referendum on ECHR. The Daily Mail, Starmer's surrender. The Sun, Flintoff to host Bullseye. The Mirror, making special memories with Katie. And the Daily Express, I never thought I'd be alive to see the law change, but perhaps it will. And finally, last not least, the Daily Star. Brace yourself, Bessie. Bessie, okay. Let's start off with you, Mark. What have you picked out from the papers, please? It's a real mixed bag today, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. It is a mixed bag, and I've got quite a few stories, so I'll rattle through them, Mark, if I may. I've been looking primarily at the Times, and obviously, one of the top stories for them is this ongoing freebies row with the present government, and I think it's something having been in a public office and funded by the public. I think the word I'm thinking about here is integrity, and having any form of gift. I remember years ago when I was working, if I was invited somewhere like, for instance, Cheltenham Races, I had to declare it. And I think that there's a bit of a problem here, a major problem, actually. And I hope that they can sort something out because it's damaging the reputation of our politicians. And I think it's something that's applicable to politicians at all levels. It's not just the people in Westminster, it's all the way to the Shire Hall and County Council. So that's my first thing. Second one, I don't know, you're a healthy eater. You'll be pleased to hear that the prices of olive oil are expected to come down because they've had a good bumper harvest in Spain. And we import billions of pounds of Spanish and Mediterranean goods. And prices rose by an enormous 183% in the last 2 years. So good news there that olive oil prices will come down because, we're all trying to eat healthier these days. And if olive oil is massively expensive, you're not going to do it. So, third story, which my colleagues on the panel will definitely know more about than I do, which is that 500,000 small businesses have vanished since COVID, which I think is a worry. I have to comment on the Gary Lineker speculation, which is, I think, in the Daily Mail, suggesting that the BBC is about to terminate his contract. This is speculation. No comment from the BBC, of course. You and I have a story about Gary Lineker, Mark, which we might want to talk about later. He is paid £1.35 million a year to present a television programme. Personally, I think that's not quite immoral, but it's an excessive amount of money. And there are plenty of other people in the media who could present that program just as well. And I have to end on a good news story, which is also in the Times. Actually, it's about little Rose, the Jack Russell dog, who apparently was being trapped in a hole in a cave in a cliff face near Halifax for a week. She fell 26 feet down the cliff face into a narrow little hole. They've kept her alive with a pipe full of giving her water and food. And rescuers have come from throughout the country to help get her out. So that is good news on a day of good news. And the other bit of good news is the fact that I'm hoping Gloucester will win at Sale tonight.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Just very quickly on Gary Lineker. I actually met Gary Lineker on an awards night in the gents' toilets. And I didn't shake his hand.
I used
He's a
to
very
work.
nice guy. He's a lot shorter than I thought he was going to be, by the way.
My little Gary Lineker story is that many years ago, I worked in commercial radio in Leicester. And as many of us who will know about Gary Lineker know he's from Leicester, his father ran a vegetable store in the market. And because he was an up and coming star of Leicester City, the commercial radio bosses thought, here's a rising star, we'll give him a show. And his show on a Sunday morning was after mine. And I had to show him the ropes and train him up on the kit. And okay, this was 1981, so a long time ago. He was charming guy, very nice, very sociable, and dare I say, a very good footballer.
Yeah, and yeah, he was very nice when I met him in the loos too. I'm going to go to you, Dorian. I'm going to go to you, Dorian. Bring you in straight away, actually, because let's talk about this olive oil. Because olive
Yeah,
oil price has been rocketing up, and
I was
let's
just
talk
going to
about
say
the
that's
general cost of food.
yeah, that's a fantastic news story for us as a business because we own a restaurant called Leven Pizza in Hereford, which is all using all Italian products from tomatoes, olive oil, and parmesan. And yeah, we've been really rocked. You know, everyone always says, "Oh, pizza, you're making money hand over fist," sort of thing. But yeah, of recent, our cost of sales have just plummeted with parmesan as well went up a lot, as well as olive oil. So that's a really good news story there for Leven Pizza and for all
Pizza.
the other and like you said, people eating healthily. I mean, olive oil is a fantastic healthy fat, and the fact that we're able to get it down in some price is brilliant.
How do you sort of manage that on a sort of daily basis with prices going up and staff costs and electricity prices? It must be really hard, especially running so many different restaurants, Dorian.
Well, especially with different sort of concepts, because we it's not just Italian, we run various different styles of restaurants. So yeah, it is really tough. But and I think we all feel the pinch in the supermarket, don't we? We're paying what, at least 40, maybe 50% more than we were a couple of years ago. You know, it's really hitting everyone's wallet. And but you can't put the price up that much in the restaurant. People just won't pay 25 quid for a pizza, which maybe with real inflation it should be. So we've actually held all our prices and then as much as we can with and then obviously the wage increase. I'm sure Labour's going to bring another wage increase in again next April. You sort of just have to swallow the wage increase. You can't really swallow the food inflation because otherwise people will be so scared about eating out. So it's a real tough one. So basically that just hits our bottom line as profit. So our main goal at the moment in these times of uncertainty is just to make sure we're delivering something exceptional and working with the teams, keeping everyone employed and still growing, but the profits aren't as plump as they used to be.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you on
Yeah.
about the actual business in the section. Very interesting what you said, Mark, about the 500,000 SMEs going under. So I'm going to bring in
Yeah.
Jemima. Obviously, you set your own business up as well. Jem, great to have you on the show. Let's talk about, first of all, the stories that you picked out for us today. And obviously, we'll find out about your business very shortly. What have you picked out from us, please?
So I've gone for the classic 20% VAT added to private school fees. I think it's a really interesting one because I think it will cut out a huge amount of people who want to send their children to private school. And I know that the education sector is struggling anyway, finding teachers. You know, some schools have a terrible rep, and I just wonder how it's going to be affected with lots of the private school students going over to the state sector and actually how the schools are going to cope with that. So yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think it will be really interesting to see how it turns out. And I think there's already been a huge drop in the number of people attending private school from September. And then my other one is just that GPs are pushing to get more time off, to get more freedom with their work, to work shorter hours. And again, I think it's very interesting because obviously we have the massive strain on the NHS, and that's been going on for years, especially COVID. And it's no surprise that GPs are super overworked, but I do also wonder how this is going to affect the health sector going forward as well. So I think it's good on both sides, but I'm not sure how it's going to turn out.
Well, I just longer waiting lists. You can't just suddenly sprout a GP out of nowhere, and they're extremely well paid, GPs. But just going back to the independent schools, because our Hannah, our youngest daughter, who's 25 now, she went to King's School, actually. It was fantastic for her. But we made a lot of sacrifices for her to get there. And lots of people in private school do. It's not the super rich. Do you mind me asking, Jem, did you go to a private school?
I did, yeah. I was very lucky. My parents very much prioritised mine and my brother's education, which, was totally selfless from them. I know that we sort of stretched on other things so that we could go to good schools. And now I think it will cut out that massive market, as you say, of the families where perhaps, it's a bit of a strain, but they will make it work. Whereas now it might not be possible, which I think is a real shame.
I totally agree with you. I couldn't imagine if we had to put 20% on the fees. There's no way we could have afforded it. We didn't have any holidays for 6 years. Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Jen. Okay, let's go over to you, Boris. Great to see you again. What have you picked out for us, please, mate?
Yeah, I've got I guess a kind of a slightly light-hearted story. So Boris Johnson's promoting his book. It's called Unleashed. Of course, it is. We've got the kind of fiasco over Laura Kuenssberg sending the briefing notes. I was a former journalist, so I know how that stuff happens, but it's massively unfortunate given her reputation is as a bit of a fanboy of Boris Johnson. Anyway, ITV has picked up the interview instead. So if anyone's interested, I'm not sure I am, but let's see what's happening. It's on at 7:00 tonight, I think. It's all about promoting his book. And one of the revelations in the last 24 hours is that he believes that the Israeli president bugged his bathroom on a visit to the UK. He's not revealing any more details about that. We need to buy the book to find out. But it's kind of love him or loathe him. He's always interesting and in the news. On a more serious note, so the Bank of England is giving hints that interest rates could fall. They're at 5% now, I think. And I was just looking at the figures for inflation. So this time last year, it's incredible to think we were at over 10%. I mean, that is insane. That was such a period of difficulty for people. And of course, prices are still rising. It's not that they're falling, although they may be for olive oil and parmesan and some certain things. But inflation's at about 2.2. So we're kind of bumping along at that level. But I think it's just interesting if we think about the last 12 months and the massive changes in terms of that inflationary context. And the last one I'm going to pick, politics is ever more bizarre. Donald Trump having kind of bundled Biden out of the race on the basis that Biden was old and doddery, is now in the same predicament himself. He's refusing to release his medical records. He's 78. What on earth is going on? Where we've got two men around the age of 80 as the two candidates to run the superpower of the world. Of course, Biden steps aside, and Kamala Harris has brought a completely different dynamic. But there's a lot hinging on that election, not least the landscape in Ukraine and the Russian war, and of course the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
Okay, no, thanks ever so much for that, Boris. A real great mix there. Just want to add, by the way, I have actually met Boris Johnson 5 times. He's jolly nice and friendly as well, actually. No notes, by the way. Just for inflation-wise, being in construction industry, all your prices must have gone through the actual bloody roof, wasn't it? Wood was going up, bricks was going up, everything was going up. Just on a very quick note, Boris.
Yeah, so massive challenges both around labour, skills, materials, both in terms of repairs and maintenance, also decarbonisation and all the work that we and many others do and the government wants to do around energy efficiency and fuel poverty and those sort of things. New build inflation, something in the region of over 15% in the last 18 months to 2 years. So massive challenges around the cost of developing new homes in this country. Particularly that is now plateauing and starting to reduce, but it's going to be an ongoing challenge.
Okay, we'll return to that, I'm sure, on your particular piece. I'm going to bring you in next, Jem, if that's okay. Let's start with you today. I'm going to share over the screen so we can get over your website. Let's have a look if I can find it. So just one second. So there we go. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, Jem. So let's have a chat. Right, Cotswold Fox. So how long have you been going now? 3 years. And how did it start as a university project?
Yeah, so I started it in spring of 2021. So yeah, 3 and a bit years. And I went to the RAU in Cirencester and did a business degree. And I was a classic person at university, didn't know what to do with my life, so just did business because it covered a whole range of things. And one of my assignments in final year was to do a business plan for a startup. And I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? I have no idea about this. No clue of what sector to go into. And at the time I was eventing a lot for internationally. I did that throughout my whole sort of upbringing. And I was a brand ambassador for lots of other similar-ish clothing brands. And I had to do lots of content for them. I had to do lots of marketing. And I actually thought this is something I could almost do for myself. So I chose a sector of clothing, put together a business plan, did a lot of Googling. It was very basic, very low detail. And I finished that and actually thought, I've got a couple of £100 in the bank. I sort of know the direction I want to take it in and the designs that I'd want to do. And literally just started from there, 3.5 years ago. And I did that for about 6 months. I left university and got a job in law in Cheltenham. And did that for about a year and a half whilst on the side, and then left last summer to run it full time. So it's been just over a year of being in the business full time.
Wow, it looks great, by the way. So I know that you do a lot of shows, don't you, and a lot of events. How important is that to the growth of the business?
Massively. So last year, because I was working full time, we think we did 3, and this year we're on track to do nearly 30. So don't get me wrong, it's really hard work, but it's really good fun. And actually you meet so many people. And I think as an e-com business, generally, people buy through the website. They don't know anything about you. They don't have that personal connection. There's nothing to do with that because they're literally clicking on a screen. So I think events, you get to chat to people, see your customers. Also, it's great sort of market research to see what people like, see their initial reaction when they try something on, like, oh, maybe the sleeves are a little bit long, or they prefer something in another colour. So it's great for revenue, great for sales and building the business, but it's also great to have that connection with people and also improve the business that way as well.
What do you say was the biggest mistake that you made so far in the company? Just for a second.
God, where do I start? The biggest mistake I've made, probably being too sort of blasé with new designs and new minimum order quantities. So I'm much more careful now. But, even last year, I would design something, think it was great myself, order 500, and then realise that actually people didn't particularly like it. I only did that once. So since then, I've been a lot more careful with doing my designs. I run it past a lot more people first. I send them out for testing. I get samples made. It's a lot more. There's much more of a structure to it. And then I order 100 of one design for the first drop because I thought, it's better to have 100 left over than 500. So I'd say that has been a big learning curve for me.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Jim. I think they're absolutely fantastic, by the way, and I look forward to learning about the business as we go along. Okay, let's go over to you, Mark. Obviously I've known you for I don't know, something like 18 years or so, isn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah, you used to let me on the BBC radio, let me loose on there. So I just want to say thanks ever so much for that. Okay, so High Sheriff of Gloucestershire. Do you just quickly explain what the High Sheriff? I know it's a Crown appointment for the start, so you're appointed by the King. Can you
Yep.
give us a bit more info, please?
Yep. It's the longest standing royal appointment. Started, we think, about 950 AD. In the old days, it was the Shire Reeve, and the Shire Reeve was the guy who controlled the county or the shire for the king. So he would have collected taxes, he would have done law and order, and he would conscript people to make an army if required. Obviously, all those things have gone now, apart from one actually, which is very briefly. In the old days, the Shire Reeve was responsible for supervising the election of members of Parliament. So two knights would sit in what was called, it wasn't a Parliament, but you know what I mean. And that's the one thing that actually carries on. So this year in July, I was actually the returning officer in the North Cotswolds constituency. But it's an honorary post. There's no money involved. It's a voluntary role. You do it for a year. And it's a fantastic honour and it's great fun. And the best thing about it, I've met lots of interesting people, primarily volunteers. I've been to places I've never been to, although I've lived in Gloucestershire for 34 years. I'm ashamed to say I'd never been to Blockley till I went there. I've been to all sorts of places. Primary focus is on volunteers. Little known fact, we have 105,000 volunteers in Gloucestershire. And these are people that without them, things wouldn't happen. So I'll give you a perfect example. Last night, I went to the launch of the Cirencester History Festival, which is a new event that starts at the end of the month, very closely associated with the successful Gloucester History Festival. And yes, most of the people involved in it are all volunteers. And that wouldn't happen without them. So it's really good. While I'm on, Mark, can I just plug one thing? Actually, we've got our judicial service, legal service on Sunday for this Sunday coming for as a way of recognising the work of the magistrates, unsung heroes, 140 magistrates in Gloucestershire, all volunteers. And we're having a service on Sunday at 11 o'clock at the cathedral to thank them and all the people that work in the court service, the police, and everyone involved with delivery of justice. And that's on Sunday. So, yeah, it's a great honour, great fun, and I'm being kept pretty busy.
And you look very handsome in your silks, by the way. You know those tights that you wear look really tight.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I don't wear that outfit very often because on the same grounds that you don't see the king out very often with his crown and his ermine, I do wear the outfit, but it's a uniform. It's 18th century court dress, and it's not very practical. And you're very contemporary, your business and our fellows on the panel today, you all live around the digital world. And I'm trying to modernize the High Sheriff and make it 21st century, not 19th or 18th or even 20th century, because it is an important role. Primary function, frankly, is to recognize the work of volunteers. And, without being too political, our country is has changed, and we're relying so much more now on voluntary efforts. And if you think about all the things that people enjoy, sports clubs, choirs, food bank, the list is endless. The Cheltenham festivals, where would they be without volunteers? So, if my job is to say thank you to volunteers, that's the least I can do, frankly.
No, totally agree. No, you do a great job, Mark. Do a great
Thank you.
job. Okay, let's go over to you, Dorian. Tell us about Dr. Foster's. Fine, Dr. Foster's. How did you there you were sitting in Hereford, you're expanding all over the place, you've got six over, probably making some decent money, you've got a burgers place, you've got a pizza place. Why did Gloucester suddenly rock up on your radar? And why
I
the
think
docks?
well, we just saw it on Sydney Phillips, and I went to have a look at it, and then I looked through how it was at the time, and then I took the rest of the team, and there's a couple of guys who run the business with me, and they absolutely love pubs, and it was just I guess the quayside we just fell in love with that location, and yeah, and we sort of took a punt on it. It was definitely not in our 2024 plan to open a pub in Gloucester for sure, because we've got a place in Birmingham we're halfway through renovating, but that's taken a back seat while we focus on opening the place in Gloucester. So it's been a great learning curve, and it's been really nice to try and get involved with the community very quickly and get to know people and get to know areas, which you have to do to have a successful business anywhere where you're inviting people in. You've got to really embrace what Gloucester's about. So it's been a really fun challenge to start to do that process, I guess, and try and make this beautiful old pub, which is right on the quay. I think it opened in '89 as a Courage Inn's pub back in the day. I guess you guys on the panel know more than me, being in Gloucester for a long time. But yeah, we're really proud to have brought it back to life and can't wait to see where it goes, really.
What do you say has been the hardest part of actually this development and getting it off the ground? Is it because the reputation of it was it'd been shut a long time? I mean, you've obviously opened successfully these other places. What's been the hardest thing?
I think it's been a mix of, yeah, because it has had such a long history, we sort of kept the name thinking that's a really positive thing, which I still think it is, but it has meant that then you're lumbered with reputation, and we all know that to be inspired to go and try something again after potentially having poor experiences or good experiences before, it might take you three or four hits from someone telling you how good it is, a social media post, whatever it is. So it's actually trying to break through those barriers to get people to actually try us for the first time. What we're hoping is when people do that, then they want to come back. So it's been that, and also just the sheer size of the property. It swallowed a lot more cash than we hoped for our cash flow purposes, because to try and make it feel right throughout the whole space is a challenge. And we want it to be a space where people feel comfortable just having a beer all the way through to a three-course dinner. So that's, yeah, those two challenges definitely trying to shake off any bad reputation, and that we're not, it's not just cheap booze and cheap food sort of thing. It's actually we've got a proper team of chefs in there. We're cooking from the heart. We renovate it really nicely. But it feels like we're at an amazing base now. It's all about building it and building the customer base.
What about finding staff? Because a lot of people in the hospitality trade say it's very difficult to find the right role. I know you've got your own chefs and stuff, but the actual bar staff, the sort of short time working staff, what's that been like for you
I,
guys?
I think, like Boris mentioned earlier, in the building trade is exactly the same. I mean, it's been I think the toughest years were actually coming out of COVID, and 21, 22, with the fuel crisis hitting, lack of staff, it was almost impossible to keep things going. But yeah, in Gloucester, we're lucky because we've got a group of restaurants and we're a chef-led company. We allow chefs to have stakes and own percentages in each restaurant because that keeps the passion and the consistency there. So we're lucky that we can actually lean and pull on other restaurants for consistent quality while we're trying to build the team, and that's very much what we've got done. We've got the general manager from our pizza restaurant that's got a phenomenal review score in Hereford, and she's come over to help instill consistency and training on the front of house. And then we've got our head chef from our other restaurant, who's now the exec chef of Dr. Foster's, to train the new head chef we've employed locally. So we're very lucky in that regard. If this was a standalone business, I think it would have been very, very tough, I have to say.
Well, I just want to say congratulations because I had a fantastic meal there the other night and it was superb and the staff were brilliant. The atmosphere was great. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Dorian, and thanks for bringing this. Thanks for investing in the city. I think it's really
Yeah,
important
yeah,
that we do. Okay,
yeah.
let's go over to you, Dorian. Great to have you back on the show again. I'm just going to swap over views a second on the old gallery. So, Dorian, Boris. So, the Tesco development that I'm just going to bring it up on screen. I've been waiting for this one for quite some time, as you know. Let me just go over to it. So, let's bring up the map. Can you all see the map, please? Is that okay? Great stuff. So here we go. This is Boris's new development. Here we got the Gilmans. You've got B&Q. Obviously, the road going down here, and you've got the rugby club is going to be over here in the corner. That's Gloucester Rugby. There's Kingsode, and we're talking about this development here, aren't we, Boris? How big a site is this? The old Castle
Yeah.
Market.
Yeah, just before we get onto this, Mark, I just want to sort of say how impressed I am with what Jem and Dorian have done and said. My wife set up and ran a yoga business and ended up with 4 studios, so I know how hard that is. And I think what's really struck me and what both of them have said is the belief and passion. then the profit and the growth follows. And I think, you know, it's great to have people like Jem and Dorian, as you say, investing in the area and putting their neck on the line to make things happen. So, you know, if I may say so, it's kind of easy to run a not-for-profit business. What you two are doing is phenomenal. So you've got a lot of credit from me. In terms of this development, so we're still in the negotiation stages with developers and the council. There's a bit of a way to go yet, Mark, if I'm honest, because the build cost inflation means that the kind of original procurement has come back with schemes where we're going to have to play around with the mix of properties and look at whether we kind of maybe phase it or think about it slightly differently. And that's because of that 15 to 18% build cost inflation. So when we look at the kind of the types of houses and the mix of houses, so it's going to be a mix or was envisaged as a mix of market sale, so anybody can buy those, some shared ownership, which is generally a 50% stake, and then some rented accommodation for people on lower incomes, although many of those people would work. That mix of a third and a third, we're going to have to negotiate with developers and the council around what we do to make that scheme stack up, given the inflation we've seen in the last couple of years. So it's literally a live discussion at the moment, and we're just working through some of the details. You'll know
sorry, Boris. So really, at the moment, what you're saying is that the original plans doesn't stack up financially then. And it's not surprising if you got all the prices of every raw materials, labour, everything going up when the original plans were set. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So the original. So you go with the way it works is you go to the market, if you like, and say, you know, here's an opportunity to deliver 300 homes. You know, roughly 100 of those are going to be for market sale. So that's your profit, your profit centre for the developers, the people who are going to build this out. They come back with some proposals. You look at those, you put those through the kind of the viability matrices. They've come back understandably more expensive than first envisaged. So then it's about saying, okay, well, what can we do differently to make this work? And we need to crack on with that because we need to get this site away one way or another and get it into planning. So I think this is more about a bit of a delay as we work through some of those details to make sure we've got something that we can really get behind, and that and crucially that the council's happy with as well. So I think this is a bit more of a kind of a road bump and a kind of we just need to sort of see what we can tweak to get this into a place where it's going to be viable again. The reason this site hasn't been developed in probably, I don't know when it was the cattle market's probably 40 or 50 years or something. It was a long time. So it's been around for a while. And there's a lot of kind of issues with the ground and the contamination, of course. Those have been dealt with. But that is one of the reasons why this site has not been developed, because it's not going to be cheap to do. But that is where housing associations come in, because we don't need to generate a profit. We just need to make something that's going to repay the capital that you borrow over the 40, 50-year term for new build in our case. So it's about working with the council and our private sector partners to get something that is going to kind of work for them, work for us, work for the council. So we're literally in the midst of that now, having had the tenders back. So it's about revisiting the parameters and the mix to get something that's going to work.
I'm just really excited about the site. I think it's because it's so run down, and I've been down there quite a lot over the years. Boris, unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time, so we'll have to get crack on. Really, we're just going to do the pick of the punchlines now. So, Mark, what have you picked out from Punchline? Just very quickly, guys, got a minute each.
Yep, very quickly. The story I picked out was from Tuesday Markets, the potential sell-off of the council property in Cheltenham. This is a massive, massive building. It's a very significant development, I think. and our colleagues, Boris will know all about this. It's grade 2 star listed. So, I think there are all sorts of challenges there, but it's a keystone to the development of Cheltenham opposite Cavendish House, which we know is empty and is, question marks about that development. So I think, and it's another reflection actually about this whole thing about town centre developments and city centre living. So what's going to happen there? Who's going to take it on? How long will we have to wait?
Watch this space. So that leads me nicely over to Jem, because Jem is actually in there in Cavendish House with your sort of concession and stuff, aren't you, Jem?
Yeah, so we've got a sort of permanent-ish pop-up shop in Cavendish House with Cots and Fox, so that's cool. But yeah, my story is the potential closing of Revolution Bars in Cheltenham. I think also like it's weird because obviously post-COVID everything closed, and now that sort of COVID effect has sort of worn off. So I think it's still interesting that everything is very difficult right now in hospitality. And I think generally younger people are going out less, they're drinking less. And yeah, I just wonder what the future looks like for that sector, really.
Yeah, Revolution Bars got a hangover from COVID. That's the heading. Okay, Dorian. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Thanks for that, Joe. Dorian, what have you picked up from this week's punchline, please?
Well, it's hospitality based as well, and I think you make a really good. I think 1 in 4 younger people aren't drinking like when we were younger, Mark. I mean, I'm sure that's all we used to do, go out to bars. So that's worrying. But then I guess a positive note from one of your stories this week was that the pub group from up north is taking on a site in Stroud. So that's positive. But it feels like there's more closures and openings at the moment, which is sad.
Big M and Co. I think it was
Yeah,
a
that's
store
it.
that's been empty for a long time. No, that's great news,
And
isn't it? And
the biggest thing is the pub. The pub is dying. And I think that's our biggest thing with Dr. Foss is actually pubs need to stay alive for the community. It's so important.
totally agree. Totally agree. Thanks so much for that, Boris. What have you picked out for us, please?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a theme here, isn't there? So it's Dobby's closing the Gloucester and Cheltenham stores, 17 stores in total, I think. And I think, like Jem said, the kind of the impact of COVID and changing shopping habits, inflation period that we came through has really hurt businesses. And I think, as Dorian said, even those that survived, it's still not easy. And that includes actually businesses like the one I run. There are still lots and lots of pressures all over the place, and I think it's a real shame to see, and probably another kind of signifier of the changing kind of consumer behaviours, including young people not drinking so much and people tightening the belts a little bit here and there. So bit of a shame.
No, thanks so much. My pick of the week is actually, I hate to say it, is Dobby's as well. Not because there was not any other stories around, but Dobby's itself only opened a year ago on that promenade, and it was a sort of experiment stores. They put an awful lot of money, and it obviously just didn't work. And you can see why. Why would you buy a plant? We can't park stuff like that. So I just think it was maybe the right store, but in the wrong place. And what is really a shame is that Dobby is also closing in Gloucester, which is a very, very big store just on the M5. Now, is that a hangover? Is that hangover from Ashchurch? The new Cotswold development coming down the tracks on Junction 9. So we'll see. Watch your space. Is the money going to be sucked out of Cheltenham to go down there? I don't want to be controversial too much, but that's the talk of the town. Okay, well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. So I'd just like to say a fantastic and a big thank you to my wonderful panel. Thanks ever so much. A big thank you to our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. But in the meantime, remember, it's all in the punchline. Thanks ever so much. Bye.